Welcome to the Aquarian Connection. My name is Liza, and today's discussion centers around the topic of inclusiveness as a foundational principle. Now, this principle of inclusiveness can be seen as a building block or a directional focus, and it exists as an energy that we can use to create a better way of living. Now, I think a lot of spiritually aware people are wondering, how is this energy now affecting us, and what direction are we going to be going? And how do we prepare for the changes that are coming? To help me explore this further are my two co-hosts, Angie and Reese. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you, Liza.
Yeah, great to be here.
Now, according to esoteric teachings, one of the most important areas that this energy of inclusiveness is expected to impact is in human consciousness, and do so in a way that takes human thinking to the next level. Angie, why don't you start us off on this topic?
As I understand it, in the new age, we're going to be working towards more of a new model for humanity, which is less about the individual and more about the collective. The idea that we're all in this together and we need each other to make it work. Now, that means that it'll be critical for us to learn how to better relate to each other, work together, and depend on each other. And the idea of inclusiveness is at the very heart of that, as I see it. It could be said that in the previous age, the Piscean age, it was largely about humans developing a sense of themselves as independent individuals. This is what we were supposed to do, each of us carving out our own sense of identity. But now we're ready to move on to the next step, which is to learn how to better relate to others, even if we don't identify with them.
Well, I think that's exactly what we see kind of playing out just across the global society, right? We're all kind of relying on each other.
And just coming off of that too, I feel like, we're not fully past the age of individualism like Pisces yet. And so even within this global community, there are certain individuals or organizations or causes that are just struggling to get into this new era of inclusiveness. It's not their fault. They're simply using what they know best and how they've been, quote unquote, raised in Pisces, for example. And this has definitely caused to some like internal conflict just in terms of thoughts and the way that we can find the path forward.
We are individuals, but I look at it as my family. Like, I don't like a lot of them, but we make room for each other a little bit. So that's kind of how I try to see it as, okay, if I can get along with these people, I can maybe get along with other people I don't like.
Well, that goes back to the heart of the idea of learning how to relate better with each other.
That's true because I don't really relate to the people I don't like. So that would have to be something I would need to look at or work on because you can't just not talk.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Or one that takes some time to get used to, I suppose. It's just how do I be myself and seem somewhat inclusive with people who maybe I don't prefer to spend time with, or maybe I can't really 100% understand their perspective or point of view. There seems to be like just a need in that case for a little bit of more acceptance and just being okay that there are differences here on Earth and this person might not be exactly like me or even similar to me at all, but they have a right to be here and that's okay.
I think it really lends itself to an idea of seeing ourselves as interdependent on a higher level. Like it's not so personal. It's about maybe a larger collective, a larger idea. Because look at the planet, like we're all polluting the planet and we're starting to realize that, hey, if we kill the planet, we're going to have to move to Mars. And I don't want to move to Mars. It's what we're doing. Like we're not thinking about the whole, but now we have to look at it because it's gotten to the point where everyone's being affected.
It's almost as if we are a little disconnected in how we approach certain things or certain topics like the environment.
Yeah, so we're talking a lot about how connected we are. We can't, with the internet and the fact that we are so very interdependent around the world today. But if we look at that, yes, we have that going on, but we still have a lot of the old energy of separativeness in the world today. We have a huge amount of division between the races, religions, countries, politics, etc. that has built up to a serious degree. So even though we have all this connectivity, we're literally cutting ourselves off from each other and shutting ourselves down in some ways as a result of that.
So, what's the biggest problem that we really need to consider or look at?
In our particular group that we are a part of, our community, our race, our religion, those kinds of things, we group up in these smaller groups.
Hmm.
And we're kind of failing to see the bigger picture that we're all part of one big group, actually, which is the group of humanity. It seems like there's a growing recognition of that, but it's kind of coming slowly. And we still have a lot of this separativeness kind of stuff to work through before we're going to start seeing what we have in common. And that's probably the next place that we need to go.
The separativeness creates like an energetic barrier between one person and the rest of humanity, or one group and another. And it sets up that us versus them mentality. And just one thing I think is really interesting too is when we talk about inclusiveness, which is, our topic for today, there are thought movements right now that are seeking to negatively brand inclusiveness as something bad. And I think inclusiveness is a good thing inherently. I feel like if people aren't feeling like inclusiveness is a good thing, then perhaps they're missing the boat. However, one thing that I think is really interesting is when it's set up like this, the people that are setting up this division, pretty smart, because suddenly they've got people that are inclusive against people that I guess are somewhat separative. But I think what we need to keep track of is we still need to be inclusive of this opposing viewpoint, especially if we want to bridge it over. And this is one of the most challenging things as people to do. How can I be inclusive of a viewpoint I disagree with? And then, as we've been discussing here, kind of bring that viewpoint along into Aquarius in a more productive, healthy manner.
Most definitely, because it is about how do we, again, it goes back to the idea of relating. How do we relate to each other with that? And so it comes down to trying to find common ground. This puts me in mind of that famous quote from Maya Angelou: "We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike." You see it a lot being played right now in commercials, and that's great because the reality is that we all have the same kinds of needs and wants, the same kinds of hurts and wounds. All humans do. We just experience them differently according to our life situation. So if we can start to connect a little bit more with each other around our humanness and just let ourselves feel our compassion for one another, we can start to better understand each other, and that will lead to better relating.
So it sounds like it's just a matter of choice. We have to make the choice to start looking at what connects me to people and maybe putting less importance on my personal likes and dislikes. I know back in the day in school, we would have debate teams where you would take opposing viewpoints and go at it.
Uh-huh.
And I think that was probably a good training ground. Like, okay, yeah. And at the end of it, you're like, let's go have lunch. It wasn't, now I have to hate you. I
Right.
think, we are making it too personal. It's just an opinion, right? It's really not about right and wrong, like an absolute, because that's different for everyone. We've seen that.
But we're tending to make it into that at times, today. But yes, excellent point. It is a choice. To be inclusive does require that you have a willingness to be inclusive. It is about choice.
For sure. And also looking for the value or an aspect of, let's say, an opposing view. Like, I disagree with this view completely, but this person is speaking with a lot of conviction. They must care about it a lot. I can appreciate their belief in what's important to them and include that in my perspective and our relationship together so that I can still, connect with them in a spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood.
Yeah, because I did find that hard to accept when it comes to like the political parties, because I would say this group doesn't care about people. But the fact is, when you talk to them, they do care deeply, that they're both just have a different viewpoint of what their caring looks like or what they think would work or what they believe is the best choice. So that was an eye opener for me.
Absolutely.
Definitely, definitely. And I can really relate to that, living in a household where historically there has been a difference of opinion politically. But it comes back to what you're saying there, Liza, is that idea of commonality. What do we have in common? We both care.
And maybe we start making that more important than the fact that we don't agree. Or maybe we have to make a list of the things we do agree on and then just really
Yeah,
bond over that.
that's the common ground approach.
Right.
Just take a political divergence. If both parties were to come and say, we represent the best interests of the people, let's start from that foundation and then have a conversation from there that might diverge. That's fine, but you've started off with the common ground of what you're trying to accomplish. And you may have different means of getting there, but let's start together and work from there. Let's be inclusive.
So, how do we think that people can meet the moment here and play a meaningful role to make change? Because a lot of spiritually minded people, they care deeply and they want to do something to help and they want to make a change. How can we use this energy to build a better outlook that would maybe replace these old ideas that we have?
Well, I think we need to maybe ask ourselves, what kind of world do we want to create as we go forward into the future and into the new age? I think that maybe we need to start with the idea of inclusiveness as a state of mind, rather than thinking about how we apply it specifically to situations, but consider it as a state of mind first, that we're going to be open and inclusive to things that we don't necessarily identify with so that we can learn to relate to them better.
I really love that. And it's very well said. Sometimes it'll be easier said than done. And so it's almost like, what can I do in the moment to think that way? And I guess one thing to consider would just be maybe on somewhat of a regular basis, think to yourself, what does inclusiveness mean to me? And how can I be more inclusive throughout my day? And then come the end of your day, reflect back. There's probably some situations where someone really pissed you off. How could you take that moment and think of it from a lens of inclusiveness? And maybe that can soften the exchange, that experience, and help to kind of strengthen that relationship you had there throughout your day.
I know when I've worked with my husband in trying to create a better relating situation, the therapist had told us, can you go into a place of neutrality or acceptance? Can you just accept what they were saying? For me, I did find working on this attitude of acceptance that it's okay. It's not right or wrong.
That's a great tool, Liza, most definitely. And I love that word or phrase. It's okay. It's okay. It's like magic.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
it's not life and death that you left the dishes. But in the moment, it kind of seemed like it.
I think that's great stuff. I think one of the things that I have found has helped me when I see myself slipping into that, separative thinking. I know that I have started to think about the fact that, wait a minute, we are all human and we're going through the same kinds of, regardless of what our circumstances are, we're going through the same kinds of challenges within ourselves, each one of us. We don't know what the other person might be going through, what they might be experiencing, but we know we've all got these human challenges that are very similar. And that will help me soften my feelings or thoughts about what's going on. But I do also think we have to be willing to go there, to challenge ourselves and just be willing to not let ourselves slip into that, but say, hey, wait a minute, can I do better with this? Can I find a little different way? That's how we're going to build our better world. Step by step, little changes incrementally that we make in our daily choices.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot of things to think about, and that's going to be a wrap for today. So I want to thank you, Angie and Reese, for sharing your opinions on the subject. And we want to thank our listeners for being with us today. And we hope to have you back again for our next podcast here on the Aquarian Connection.
Thank you, Liza.
Thanks so much.